She's a country singer-songwriter and your redneck friend. She's also the host of Radio Margaritaville, and her latest song, Mind Your Own Backyard, is out now. Please welcome Krystal King to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, doing great. Just trying
Yeah,
to keep up with everything. Sleep a little just sleep deprived.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's probably, I'm guessing you're in a huge rush. You released Mind Your Own Backyard over the summer. You just recently announced that you have new music coming out soon, so I'm sure it's a real just like day after day slog of promoting things.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a hustle for sure.
And so the first thing I want to hop into before getting into all these new releases is way back to the start. What first got you into music, or what was your first like experience with music that made you want to pursue a career in it?
Yeah, so I think it was honestly just kind of in my bones and just kind of automatically part of me. I don't really remember ever wanting to be anything else or do anything else. I kind of fought it a little bit in like the college years and didn't fully jump into it. But I think when I finally started actually pursuing it, moving to Nashville, I knew I was doing what I was meant to be doing because I think that's what I wanted to do since I was like 2, 3 years old. I heard Alan Jackson on the radio and just fell in love with country music. And um, yeah, it was just part of me ever since.
Yeah. So then it's been country from the start too, also
Yeah.
not many. Yeah.
Yeah. Not just music in general. It was specifically country music for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, like, when you mentioned like trying to fight it in in college, I guess was that just like wondering if it was a valid career, outside pressure? What made you second guess it or question it?
You know, I think part of it was I just didn't know how to get started. Because
Hmm.
it is kind of a funky career. There's not like
Yeah,
a straightforward career path for it. And I do kind of have this practical side to me. I am kind of a dreamer and a creative, but I also have this logistical practical side of me. And I blame it on my parents because my dad's very much like the practical, level-headed, blue-collar guy. My mom's more the like head in the clouds dreamer lady. And so I think I just didn't know how to get started or how to do it. Not that I didn't want to, I just didn't know where to start. So I
yeah,
think that's the biggest thing. And then I think with that, I would just kind of question myself a lot and be like, "Am I good enough? Am I ready?" And so for me, it was almost like a comfort zone thing. Was like just to kind of go into something else. But then quickly realized that, after a year of like a day job, I was like, okay, no, I still
Th
want to do
this is not it. Yeah,
not
but
it.
it is hard. It's not like with most jobs or industries, it's like towards the end of college, you start doing like internships and whatnot in that, and then get a job out of college, and that's kind of like the starting point. And there's not much that's like solid like that in a music career. Like, I mean, at least artist wise, there's management, other things around music you can do, but there's no like, graduating from college and get an artist job or something like that. And
Exactly.
so it's that, and I mean, I definitely relate to not knowing how to start, but from what I found and heard from a lot of people is to like just start. Like
Right.
I had next to no clue what I was doing, but just started like putting stuff out on YouTube, things like that, and like slowly building from there. And so I guess on top of maybe the just do it or the just start mentality, what other tips or advice would you have to like country musicians who are just starting out and wanna grow?
Um, just, almost say yes to everything because you never know who you're going to meet where. So just do you're going to have to pay your dues. You're going to have to do the grunt work. You're going to have to play cover songs and that's okay. And I also I'm like embrace the cover songs. Like that's as an artist, I know we want to play our original songs, but the best way to hook people and get them to listen to your original stuff is by playing something that they know, and that catches their ear in the first place. So, never be too proud to do that. Not to say
Yeah.
get stuck in that, but don't ever be too proud to do that or to pay your dues or carry all your own stuff. 90% of my job is driving and unloading and loading equipment, you know.
Yeah.
Only
No,
like
it's
10% of it is actually performing. Um,
yeah, no, there's so much. I'm in school for music right now, and so I'm in the middle of learning like setting up for a show, doing the live sounds. Like there's a lot that of work that goes into it behind the scenes and even during the show to like help it run and help it go smoothly. And I mean, even with the cover songs that you mentioned, I'm no singer-songwriter by any means. I'm definitely not in the country space, but even as a producer, I've sort of found like a parallel to it. I'm really big on original stuff. I want to create, I want people to hear that. But I've recently just gotten really big into like remixes and things like that. And those almost always do immediately better than my original stuff because people know the songs. They want to hear different versions of it. And so I'm hoping to really develop that to like kind of transfer those listeners over to my original stuff. And so no matter how you're doing it, no matter what it looks like, it's all the same, but a slow and steady growth is definitely the goal. And
For
so
sure.
with all the performance experience that you do have, I'm curious as to like what your first live show was like. Was there a lot of lugging equipment around? Was it very bare bones, just you and a guitar? Just what did that look like?
Trying to think what my very first live show was. I think it was like a coffee house gig.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I think one of them I may have had somebody provide equipment for me. I do remember I showed up to one gig, like I think I was in high school, and I was just totally clueless. And I thought they were gonna have equipment, or that I was gonna be able to like just show up and play. And
That
my
you'd show
parents,
up and there'd be a nice stage set up and
yeah, like I got
everything.
there and they had nothing, and I was like so clueless. Like I was just that naive and that clueless. And so my parents went to like the closest music shop and like rented stuff for me and brought it there, and we set it up and we figured it out. They got like a quick tutorial at the music shop, and I think I started like 30 minutes late because we were
You were
absolutely
figuring out the equipment.
I was just excited to get a gig, and I just kind of I didn't know what that entailed. So that was probably super awkward and funny to think back on. I also played a gig. So all the gigs before had always been with just like me and my guitar, acoustic stuff, in like a coffee shop or open mic setting. But I do remember playing one in high school with my husband, my now husband. Then we weren't even like dating. We were barely even friends, but he knew I sang and he was offered a gig um, playing drums. So me and him got together and did a little duo show in high school in front of the Hickory Dickory Dock, which is basically it was like kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese situation, like they have like the climbing things, they have games, they have laser
Yeah.
tag, bumper cars, all those sort of things. Um, so that was an interesting gig, and that was more like outside on a big stage, and we felt cool.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. And looking at those and the probably so many shows you've done since then, really reflecting on them, do you have a live show that like really sticks in your mind or that's one of your favorite?
Oh goodness. There's a lot. I did play Harrisburg for their Fourth of July festival, and that's in North Carolina. And that one was really cool because I think that was actually like, the largest stage I'd sang on. It was an amphitheater, and I walked up and I was like, oh crap, like this thing is huge. And there was this big like 80s rock band playing after us. So like they had their drums like set up on a big riser, and they had like TV screens and
Yeah.
fancy lights, and we were opening for them. So we had a much smaller setup, but that was kind of like shock when I got there. But at that point, like I had enough experience and I'd been on bigger stages. So like I was like, we got this, we can do this. But it just was shock walking up to that stage and being like, oh, this is the biggest like space I've ever had.
Yeah. Which I'm sure like as maybe daunting or scary as that was, probably was like also an awesome feeling that you're going on to bigger stages and bigger spaces.
Cool. And in that same vein, another North Carolina show was I did headline the Oktoberfest in my hometown of Hickory
Awesome.
last year. And that was super cool because I played that festival on like the singer-songwriter stage. I grew up going to that festival. So last year getting to be like on their main stage and being one of their, bigger acts. was just super fun. And I had a lot of family and friends that showed up and showed out for that one. Some people I hadn't seen in years and years. And so it was just a cool full circle moment there.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Hey, it's Heroek, and this episode is sponsored by me. Well, kind of. If you don't know, I recently started a clothing line called Quest Clothing, which you can shop right now. I'll leave some pictures here on the screen, but we got the core collection, which is just this sleek black and white design on a bunch of products. And then we also have some more like merch style stuff with cover arts for my songs and things like that. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm really excited that I now have it. And so expect a lot more collections, a lot more designs coming out soon. I'll leave a link to it down below, and if you want to stay up to date with any new releases or anything like that, follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram. So go get cool designs like this, or even this, and you'll be helping me support all of this, the podcast, the music, everything. Plus, it just looks cool. We even got this nice big letter design on the back. Look at that. Look how cool that looks. So head to the link in the description to get yourself some Quest clothing, and make sure to follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram for updates with new collections and stuff like that. And now back to the episode. On top of like all this live performance, all your original music, you're also the host of Radio Margaritaville. How does that job come about? How do you get into that in the first place? Just what can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So, it's kind of the backstory is I did do radio in college and did a few internships within that. And then it just sort of kind of got out of it because I started pursuing music and doing other things. But I kind of kept that door open. Like I still would wanted to have some sort of broadcast foot in the door, but it was just hard to figure that out with balancing a music career. But I was actually touring in Florida a lot with my friend Kirsty, and she had kind of discovered the Parrot Head community, which is basically all the crazy Jimmy Buffett fans. And found out they have this whole trop rock, this like beach music scene that has its own festivals, its own house concerts, its own radio stations. Like it's got all these things. So we kind of just dove in and got involved in this community, even though like neither of our music was really trop rock. We just dove in, and they are the best people, the best fans. Like literally if you're part of that community, they embrace you and just like scoop you up, and you're one of them at that point. And so in passing, I just met one of the DJs on Radio Margaritaville, and I just happened to mention that I was like, hey, I have radio experience if you ever need anybody. Kind of like just said that and walked away, like didn't think
Yeah.
anything of it. But next thing I know, he was like, actually, we kind of are looking for somebody. So we went through the process of like giving me like a little fruitcake on the radio segment, and then he showed that to the program director. I sent him a resume, did some trial stuff, and then they hired me to do weekends. So I DJ for Saturdays and Sundays on Radio Margaritaville, which was just super cool because I never imagined like my first like real radio job would be for like a company like SiriusXM. So
Yeah.
I was like, this is wild, but it's been super great for my music, because it's still in the music world. So it's a great networking thing for me. It helps me get my music out more, but also, my music helps to bring people to that as well. So
Yeah.
that's been a fun experience.
It's just like building everything up, like both parties benefit from it. So
Oh yeah.
that's
And it was
amazing.
something I wanted to do anyway. So it kind of just all fell into place the way it was supposed to be. Because the problem I ran into whenever I was first trying to back into radio was either stations were like really tiny stations, independent stations, and they just didn't pay a whole lot. You weren't getting a lot of exposure. Or it was the opposite. It was super corporate stations.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to know somebody, or you have to have like bigger experience. And then also if you get hired, they probably want you to be like full time, and it's not like a super flexible job with my music. So this just wound up being one of those perfect situations.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And so listening to, basically Jimmy Buffett style music, like for most of the weekend. How does that influence your creative process at all, or does it? And what does that creative process look like in general when you're coming up with a new music?
Yeah, well, it definitely, I would say, has influenced it. Jimmy's a really good storyteller. And I guess for folks who have just heard his like Margaritaville or Cheeseburger in Paradise, they haven't dove into his catalog. But he's a really good songwriter. He's up there, with the John Prines and Steve Goodmans and all these big people, and he really is a true artist in that, and you can see that in a lot of like some of his deeper cuts and things like that. And so I think it definitely influences that because of the storytelling, but also I do enjoy some of his songs that have like horns and different style of production. I think it's just cool to see how he formed a community around himself and the business side that came with that. I think it takes a very special person to build a following like that when you don't fit necessarily in a musical genre. And
Yeah.
he tried to be country and Nashville kind of like kicked him out. They didn't really embrace him. And then when he moved to Key West and he just sort of developed his own thing and people liked it. And I think that's a big tribute. And I try to like think about with my music. Obviously I want it to be something that radio stations can play and that people like, but ultimately like I just have to like it and I have to feel like it's authentic to me. And then hopefully, people will build around that.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. And I mean, getting into the business side of it, which I guess could be a bit of what we're doing here, but promoting music nowadays. I mean, like it's changed so much in the last even 10 years from like really networking, radio play, things like that to now like social media has kind of exploded it to like everyone and everywhere. How do you use social media normally to like either market your music, anything like that?
Yeah, and I wish I had a better science to that.
Yeah.
I mostly just try to post as much as I can. I try to do the reel, to try to make the post and the photos and do all the platforms. And I do that for a few reasons. I think so my followers see that I'm like active and I'm doing things and they see a lot of the things that are going on behind the scenes. Um, and I think other writers, when they see that, and then that pulls in people who want to collaborate with you more, but also to try to reach new fans. So sometimes it's a game of trying to hit the algorithm just right so that it'll push it out to other people, and then they'll hear your stuff and then maybe follow you, and you can build fans in that way too. But it's definitely a tricky game figuring that out, especially because I feel like it's constantly changing. So once you start figuring
Yeah.
one platform out, something changes or so
Yeah,
trying
no, like every time you have just figured out a certain platform or algorithm, it changes completely and you need to figure it all out again. And it's constantly changing, which makes it hard. Yeah.
to. But yeah, I think to just try to get the information out as much as possible. But I think just having an active presence, like even to people that you do know, if the more they see your stuff popping up, the more they're going to be like, oh, what's she doing? Or I'll click on it because I keep seeing this thing. And I have realized you kind of have to spoon feed things to people. Like just because you posted once on Facebook doesn't mean that everybody saw it. Um,
Yeah.
so, continuously putting things out kind of like tricks the social media into pushing it more. And then hopefully more people will actually see it or pay attention to it. 'Cause sometimes it takes me like 3 times to see something before I actually like absorb it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so as sort of a built-in promotion right here, if someone hasn't seen your online presence, hasn't heard your music, what song of yours would you recommend to like get into Krystal King?
Oh man. I any
And
of
feel
I
free to throw a bunch out there. Yeah, and it doesn't have to literally just be one.
I think anything from like this new project is kind of where I'm at right now. So I think so far I've kind of released a little bit of it, something for everybody. There's Red Wine and White Lies, which is a little bit more like upbeat, Miranda, sassy. House Fire is a little bit more like dark and sad, but also like hauntingly beautiful in a way, even though it's sad. So if you're that like sad country music lover, that one's for you. And then Mind Your Own Backyard is more, I mean, it is sassy, but it's sassy in more of like a satirical, just like clever way. It's definitely kind of hokey, Dixie Chicks, Goodbye Earl vibes.
Yeah.
So I think those three are probably a good representation of me. Mind Your Own Backyard kind of shows off that more like honky tonk style in my roots, which is kind of what my earlier music was a little bit more on the honky tonk vibes. And then the other two kind of show my mix of that and 90s country with combined with like maybe like some blues and folk and that side of things.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And
Kind of
I mean,
sound overall.
yeah. Are you a music artist trying to find a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible? Then check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a super user-friendly and super easy-to-use service that will make your music available in stores like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, Snapchat, everything. Everything you could imagine, it's available. People will even be able to add your songs into their Instagram stories. DistroKid helps you with the distribution, monetization, and promotion of all of your music. Use the link in the description of this video for 7% off any DistroKid package you want. Pick from musician packages designed to help artists get their own music out there, or even get a label package where you can manage up to 100 artists from one profile. So that's more for like managers, labels, and you can also get the musician package that I mentioned earlier, which is more for artists, producers, things like that. It's super easy, and you can get 7% off any package right now with the link in the description of this video. So once again, if you're looking for a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible, I'm talking any platform you can think of, get DistroKid and get 7% off right now with the link in the description. Back to the program. One of the songs you mentioned right there, Red Wine and White Lies, is your most popular song on Spotify right now with over 17,000 streams. Did you have a good like feeling about that when making it, or was it kind of a surprise once you released it?
Both. So that one was I loved the idea from the get-go. I loved how it sounded. But I did, submit it to like the National Songwriters Association and different places for some reviews of the song to get, ideas of how to tweak it. And they kept coming back with like changing the melody, and like the melody in the chorus not being like, I don't know, catchy enough or something. And
Yeah.
I typically will take that advice and change things, but I, for some reason, was like, no, like I kind of like it the way it is. So I stuck to my guns on that. But I never thought I wanted to release it and I was passionate about that song, but I never thought it was actually going to be a single. I thought it was just going to be one of the songs on the album. And then once I got the mix back was kind of whenever I got to hear it all. And actually probably up until we added one last guitar part in. I had my friend Scotty Murray, he did like a lap steel slide guitar lead part. And that was the last part that we added in. And it was like as soon as that like was added in, I was like, oh, here it is. Like
Yeah.
here and now it's here.
It
It's
just
like,
brought everything together.
yeah, for sure. Because we had some other guitar parts in there, and it still just wasn't quite getting where I wanted it to be. And then suddenly Scotty Murray just dropped that in, and I was like, okay, this is the song. And then I got the
This is
first
it. Yeah.
mix back, and I was like, okay, like this might be a single. Like it's kind of a banger. Like it's upbeat, it's catchy, it's fun. Nothing super deep lyrically, but it's clever. But it's just got a cool sound to it. And I remember I got the mix when I was in Key West. I think I think for Meeting of the Minds, or maybe it was the Key West Songwriters Festival. I don't remember, but I was in Key West for some sort of event. And we're sharing a house with a bunch of different musicians. So when I got the mix in, I was like really shy, and I was like, can we like listen to it on this speaker? And all the people that were there with me like started dancing and like vibing, and were like, no, like you got to release this. So yeah, put that one out, and I was pleasantly surprised with how much people resonated with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely took off, and I think that's awesome that I mean, because I've started doing this now too, like taking feedback or criticism from people, like rather than trying to like implement it all, go here and here and here, just like really digest it a bit and like see if it's actually in your mind making it better and things like that. Because at the end of the day, you should be making it for you because it's your music and not what other people say.
Yeah, and so like pick and choose. Like I guess that you were asking about the advice earlier too. Like people are always going to have opinions, and you can't please everybody. But I mean, take those and digest it and utilize what you can. But then at the end of the day, it's your song, so it's your call. And I don't think there's ever like people can tell you how to do things all day long, but I don't think there's a tried and true way to success in the music industry. So
Yeah.
ultimately, I think just staying true to yourself and doing what you enjoy and what your fans enjoy is the way to do it.
That's key. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And so like because I wanted to ask you like as someone who's I'd say recently getting into country or over the span of my life hasn't been the biggest country music fan. I like whenever I think of it, it's a very like kind of American genre. I think of like Nashville, all these big like country cities. But when researching you, you actually do have like a big fan base like internationally as well. I'm curious why you think that is and if there's something about your music specifically that's helping country grow to a global audience.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Well, I actually didn't realize I had a big international following. So
Yeah.
thanks for letting me know that. Um, but I do think, country is expanding. I've got some friends in the UK. My friend Christy Kraus, she just did a big tour in the UK. So I think I have been chatting with a lot of brands within those areas. I haven't been yet, but that is definitely like on the bucket list to eventually do like the UK and Canada, and maybe some other areas eventually. But I think country is definitely spreading, and I think part of that's probably the blended genre that's happening. Like country's not just country anymore.
Yeah.
There's pop country, there's hip hop country, there's traditional, there's all kinds. So if you can't find something you like in country music, then that's probably your own fault. Like
Yeah,
there's
you're just not looking in the right
there's nothing
place.
wrong with you. Because there's a little bit of everything right now. There's rock country, there's bluesy country. Yeah, so I think that's a big thing. And so for me personally, I kind of like sticking more with the roots of country, but also I do like playing with different styles. So hopefully that's resonating with people outside. But I think social media is also a big thing to connect with international audiences.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's funny that you mentioned Kiersey Kraut. We were talking offline about how you found me, and that's probably it because I had her on the podcast
That might
a
have been
while
it.
ago.
Because
Yeah,
a lot of times
when
I see my friends are on like a podcast or a show, I'll follow that, and then eventually I'll
yeah,
go through and be like, okay, who have I followed that I need to check out? So
yeah,
that might have been her.
yeah.
And she
Yeah.
also, we got to give her a shout out because she just recently got the female artist country artist award at the Josie Music Awards, which was held at the Grand Ole
Awesome.
Opry. So
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about
I'll have
that.
to reach out and congratulate her on that. I didn't know about that.
Yes.
Awesome. But like going back to your music overall, do you have kind of one overall message you'd say that you're sending with your music and your career, or is it really varying like based on the song that you're making?
I think it does vary a lot based on the song I'm making.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say I do have a lot of like humor and fun in my songs. So I think, part of that's just I like storytelling and um I like laughing at myself and like being and like humor. And then I tend to write songs in extremes because obviously like House Fire is not funny at all. And it's probably my favorite song that I've ever written. So yeah, I don't know that there's one message. But I think like the next door redneck thing is kind of a good I'm just kind of a quirky, all over the board
Yeah.
person. So I just
It's
try.
a good like slogan identifier, like gives you a sense of the personality and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's that's kind of the overall thing is just the relatable, like down to earth, quirky redneck person message and just trying to be relatable. But I try not to put myself in a box too much. A lot of people do identify me by more of my funny songs, but I also do want to show that I can do the spectrum, and I can do things that are maybe a little bit more meaningful or more thought provoking.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome because it's definitely important to show off that being multi-talented, being able to go into other moods, styles, genres, things like that. And so it's definitely, very, very important and very awesome that you can do all those things.
Hey, if you're like me and you're interested in the YouTube or creator space, you should check out The Published Press. The Published Press is a completely free newsletter founded by YouTubers Colin and Samir. They host their own podcast talking to some of YouTube's largest creators. They've edited some of the best content I've seen on YouTube, and now they're sharing their knowledge about the YouTube space with you for free. The Published Press comes out 3 times a week every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with everything going on with your favorite creators and platforms. And like I said, it's completely free. Just enter your email address to receive the Published Press whenever it comes out, and that's it. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below, sign up to the Published Press, and get all the info you need on the industry.
In terms of like, your career overall, do you have any certain like milestone or goal that you're trying to reach, or really just see where it takes you?
So, the ultimate goal would be like the next Miranda Lambert. Just I would love to be signed and playing all the big festivals and playing the Opry and having a pub deal. Like that's the ultimate goal. But just you kind of enjoying the journey, remembering to enjoy the
Yeah.
journey because the hustle can be really hard. And sometimes this career can be just like really defeating feeling, you have to
Oh,
surround
definitely. Yeah.
you have to surround yourself by like people who believe in you and that support you and keep you going. And you have to really love what you do because there are going to be no's or there are going to be some like things that take a really long time to unfold. So I think just continuing to tour as much as possible and record. I guess like next goal was getting out this album because the Doggone is going to be my fourth release from it, and so then after that, probably beginning of 2025, I'll put out the full project. And then I've been writing a lot behind the scenes, so we'll be trying to get that out so I can get started on the next batch of songs that I've been loving on, and trying to just play bigger festivals, bigger shows, maybe get some opening slots. I also love songwriting, so kind of diving into that. I do want to focus a little bit more on my writing in the next year or so, but it's kind of a balance, especially when you're trying to pursue both artist and writer routes,
Yeah.
uh, because you gotta figure out where to put your time and energy, and sometimes one or the other has to like take a back seat for a minute. So.
Yeah. It is interesting because I've heard this from a lot of songwriters that I do now, or people who are like solo artists as well as songwriters. How do you kind of when you're writing something or coming up with a new song, how do you determine whether it's something you want to like work with someone else on, or you think it's going to be a solo thing for yourself?
Oh, you know, I tend to write more in co-writes. And I think a lot, so I do write a lot of my own, but it's usually a lot of like prep work and a lot of just like
Yeah.
idea vomit stuff. And usually I take that into co-writes and kind of try to chisel it down into something. And I think for me, I just overthink things a lot. So sometimes having a co-writer or somebody there to like bounce things off of helps me to kind of edit and stop overthinking things. And we kind of edit in the moment. Um, and and also just time because I'm so busy that a lot of times I have a hard time shutting off business brain and getting into creative brain, especially whenever I'm by myself. I can do that more if I have a co-writer, if I have a scheduled appointment. Um, but if I'm at home and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna write by myself from 1 to 3, I'm like, oh crap, I need to do this email. Crap, I need to like make this appointment.
Yeah.
Uh, and I kind of let the business take over. But I would love, like, that is definitely a goal of mine is to start solo writing more again. and taking more time for that, even if it's not full songs, but even just to like get those idea banks rolling. But I do a lot of like editing and like partial writing on my own, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
like we'll get
Yeah.
something started and then maybe I'll write the second verse and send it to my co-writer and we'll go back and forth. Um
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I mean, I think like it really depends on the person or how you work, but like a bunch of friends and I here like really to really get something started production wise, we kind of need like other people holding us accountable or other people there. So like we'll keep texting each other like, yo, does anyone want to come to the studio right now? And we're just like there and just even whether we're working on it together or different projects, like just having another person there that you know is working on something makes you want to work on something. And then, you know, no, usually if we get a good start on something, we're just like back in our rooms working on it to continue it and make it better.
right. So I'm kind of in this phase now where I'm trying to go back and relearn songs or learn songs that I never started playing out or edit them and make sure I have a decent work tape. So I'm kind of trying to take a few months to focus on getting like all the material that I currently have organized and down on paper and recorded in some fashion, even just like a phone work tape. And then next year, definitely trying to dive back into the writing because I just kind of had too much stuff floating around that I was like, I can't even keep up. You're definitely
Yeah.
getting rambly Krystal today because I was on the road for like a week and then got back and then just crashed hard today. So I'm like not even wearing real pants and I have pig bedroom shoes on and yeah.
Yeah. No,
Dreams
that's completely fine. That's what like podcasts.
unfiltered rambly Krystal.
Yeah, the Unfiltered Krystal King
Yeah, there
podcast.
we go.
But I mean, that's exactly what it's for. It's like these long form, really just conversations that we're sharing with people, and so that's the best part about it, I think. Um, and so I'm curious with your music that you're performing live and like you said, trying to get some other things down. Is there a song of yours that you really like to play live or that you think you've played live the most?
Ooh. I love playing um Jesus in Jail live is one I really love. I'm somewhere between Jesus and Jail, and that's a song that my friend Taylor Hughes cut a few years back. And then I also have my own version of it on my album. So that one's always fun to perform because it's just high energy. I also really like performing House Fire live. It's I don't know why. I think I just love that song so much, and for some reason it's just really um yeah, it's just kind of got a hold of me and it's fun to sing because it's catchy and it shows a different side of my voice and it's kind of showing a different vulnerability. But it's not like super slow, so you can still pull it off in live shows without it being like
Mm,
weird or
like
buzzkill.
jarring. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I mean, you did mention it a bit earlier, but you're currently working on your debut album, Pretty Poison, building up to its release. What can you tell us about that, or what can fans kind of expect from this upcoming album?
Yeah, so it's a 7 song EP. It's kind of like a concept-ish album. Not like full on, but most of the songs are like kind of about almost negative relationships. So there's like a leaving song, a cheating song, a murder my husband song, a setting the house on fire song. So it's all kind of um mostly upbeat. There's only two slow songs on it, but they're all kind of relationshipy songs.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the concept with that one and kind of how I chose the final songs to put on that project. But yeah, so it's my first like larger collection of songs I'll be putting out. And it was really fun to make. It was a lot of hard work. It's been a long time coming. I've been sitting on this thing for like 3-4 years, like just
Oh
trying to get
wow.
it all like together and put out. I think we moved into our house, yeah, in 2020. And I remember getting a text from somebody at Dark Horse Institute, which is Dark Horse has like their main studio, but they also have a student recording studio.
Mhm.
Um, and so basically the deal was you bring in your own people and they'll record you for free as part of the students like midterm.
Yeah,
Um,
that's awesome.
so the mixes you get are a little because they're students,
Yeah.
they're learning. But you do get to keep all your raw files, and you get to, so I was able to take those and then take them to a mixer and get it situated the way I wanted. So that was kind of the moment that I decided I was going to do a larger project, was because I was like, I can get files for like way cheaper.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but by doing that, I also didn't really hire a producer. I just kind of like picked some musicians I knew, and we practiced like twice and made the arrangements at my house. And then we went in and we recorded it. Um, but there was a few folks that couldn't come in. So like we did the steel and the fiddle. And some of those parts they did from their house and then sent in to us. And then took it to the mixer, and we basically would like weed out, see what worked, what didn't work, what we still needed, and then we'd get that sent in. And so it was kind of a long process because it wasn't
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wasn't your typical recording process where you kind of have an idea from the get-go and they just play it and you get it down. But I do think I got kind of a unique sound because of that. Maybe it's not as cohesive as it could have been had I like hired a producer or knew more what I was doing. But I do think I got like more of a unique sound than I would have gotten. So pros and cons to that. But so yeah, I think 2020 is when the idea came about. I think we went into the studio that May or so and then started mixing it. But it took me a little bit to find the right person and to get it all worked out, since we were replacing a lot of parts and going through it that way. And you'd have to take a break to save some money for it. And um,
Yeah.
yeah, so then I guess not this past February, the February before was whenever we were done.
Hmm.
And I like got the hard copy in my hand and started um releasing the songs last August. So I'm kind of taking my time releasing them because I was like, you know what, I took a lot of time recording it and working on it, so I want to make sure I give it its time to shine, and that also gives me time behind the scenes to work on new stuff. So
Yeah.
hopefully by the time I fully get this out, I'll have the next album like written and we can start recording it.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. No, definitely something I've realized since making music for myself. Like growing up listening and being a fan, it was like, your favorite artist will maybe like have an album, and then like it'll be a year or two, and then singles come out, and then a next album, and kind of just repeating that. And now I've really seen that it's like as they release something, the day it comes out, they have like a bunch of projects already like lined up and in the early process of working on it, or sometimes even finished, like ready to go. And so
And
it's
I think
really,
having this kind of stockpiled was super helpful in the release
yeah, I'm
process.
sure.
Um, and so because you're constantly wanting to put music out, and honestly, I like for algorithm purposes, I should have been putting it out faster. But
Yeah,
you put a lot of time and energy into it, so you want to make sure that you um give each song its time to shine, because I think a lot of times when we put out full albums, I love albums, like I love albums and would love to just be able to drop a full one. But I think especially as an independent artist, um and especially now, like the day and age of singles where people's attention span is short, like if you put out an album, like what, like people are super excited about it for a month or two and then
yeah.
they're ready for the next thing. And that's a lot of money and time to put into a project if you're only going to get like 2 months worth of attention for it.
Yeah,
So
no, definitely. Definitely. And also like, yeah, not I mean, I'm glad to hear that you're a big album person, because I love listening through albums, but like not everybody is. So maybe they, with singles, like it's usually those songs that are the biggest, because people who aren't album people like those two, three, maybe four songs from the album, but never listen to like the other songs on it. And so that's just another problem of like if someone sees, however many songs all together released at once, they'll just be like, I don't have the time to listen to all that. And then yeah, and so it's really important to get people's attention, or like let it be more manageable, so that when you release an album, they're like, oh, I already know this song, like this song, and so there's just like a couple more to listen to and a couple more to add.
And I think that kind of gives you the best of both worlds because it gives you the singles that are so popular today, but you can also like put out an album that kind of has a concept or a cohesive sound. And that's been a lot of fun doing it that way. And
Yeah,
just yeah. So I love albums, but I think this was just the way to go for me to milk it.
yeah, totally, totally.
And I thought,
And
but I lost it.
that's totally fine. I get it. I get it. And there are times where like I'll be on here and I'll like think of a question as someone's talking and they finish and I go to ask it and it's just
On
gone.
there.
And I have to like fumble and catch myself on something else. And so yeah, no.
Yeah, I was totally the thing trying to remember what I was gonna say, and then I was like, it's not there anymore. It's gone.
It's gone. It was here and now it's not. But I mean, this has been great, so much fun. But one thing I want to do to kind of start wrapping things up is actually give people a little taste of your music with a segment that I like to call Know Your Stuff. And so it's I'll play a good amount of some of your songs, and then for you it's just one of you can shout out the name of it, let people know, and then just tell us anything about the song, the meaning behind it, what went into it, anything that maybe we didn't get to in the interview portion.
Sweet.
Awesome. Yeah. So here's the first one that I have.
Yeah, that one I wrote with my friend John Hemingway, and that was my first music video ever.
That's awesome. And that was Slow Love also for those listening who want to go check it out.
Yes, so my
Yeah.
very, very first music video, and my husband's actually in that one.
Awesome. So with your first music video, what was that like, or like what was there something about the song that like told you that this gets a music video or this deserves a music video?
I think it was 2020 and COVID and everything was happening, so we had more time on our hands, and one of my husband's coworkers happened to do video, and he'd never done a music video, but he'd done some documentaries and he'd done a lot of like video projects. So it was kind of a win-win. He was like, I'll do it. He was like, it'd be great
Yeah.
for me. Like, I'll learn a new skill. You'll get a music video out of it. Like, win-win for everybody. So we went out with him like 3 or 4 times and shot this music video. And it wasn't like, I think the music videos I've done past then or since then have been like a little bit more like, we're gonna nail this down in like a few hours and go. But we got to kind of take our time with it and had a ton of different takes, and it was fun. It was fun. It was nerve-wracking because that was like my first time like acting in anything, and I was like, I don't know how to do this.
And yeah, it's a totally different skill than like the music side of things.
For sure.
Yeah, awesome. Well, the next one that I have here, also with the music video, is
Smart, you to learn to mind your own backyard.
I mean that's a bit more, straightforward, but that's the new one, Mind Your Own Backyard.
Yeah,
Um, and so yeah, just what a bit more about that, what went into it and anything like that.
yeah, that's one of my favorites. I knew when I wrote that one with Stephanie Joyce that I wanted to record it and kind of could picture the music video and everything. And we wanted to go like kind of a vintage 60s theme in the music video. So we're all wearing like these crazy bright colored dresses and have our hair in like these weird curls, and yeah, it's just very, very hokey, and we're like, oh, we're sipping our tea and we're not doing anything wrong. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh, but I did bury my husband in the backyard. So um yeah, that was just a Goodbye Earl Dixie Chicks inspired song.
Yeah, awesome. And then the last one I have here is
Is there a story? So my left hand
Rhinestone Ring. Yeah. And I wrote that with the same girl, Stephanie Joyce, as I did Mind Your Own Backyard. And I think out of my like honky tonk songs, that one might be like one of my favorites as far as the full recording of it.
Over, yeah.
Yeah, I was just super happy with how that one came out. I recorded that with Mike Loudermilk, and he did literally every instrument on it. Yeah, and so that one was just fun and definitely very, very honky
Awesome.
tonk.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think those couple songs also gave a nice range of what you can do.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I had so much fun talking to you, getting to know more about you and your music. But, where can people find you and your music online?
Yep, it's krystalkingmusic.com is my website, and on like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all places. I think the handle is at Krystal King Music with a K. So just remember it's spelled with a K, like the burgers. And doggone, the new single will be coming out November 8th, and you can pre-save it now.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'll leave a link to some of that down below. But thank you again so much for coming on. Yeah, coming on. Can't wait to hear this new single once it's out, and then the album once it's out. Any music videos that may or may not come with it, I'm super excited for. And yeah, stay tuned. Check out Krystal King and all her stuff. And yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.